What is going on, you guys? It's your boy, Rusty Returns here, and we are back with episode 163 of the video game therapy series. This is probably the longest I've gone without doing one of these, so I figured I would hop on the exercise bike and do one of these just to flex this muscle. I guess the muscle I'm talking about here is a mostly useless muscle of the muscle of being able to blabber for an hour uninterrupted. But either way, I'm working it out. Ideas have been piling up, so I don't know if I'll ever get to inbox zero with these ideas, but I gotta start somewhere. So because usually I think in the early days of these, I used to kind of not outrun my ideas, but keep up with my ideas such that going into any given episode, I might only have two or three of these like haikus written down that you know, in my head, I'm like, all right, well, I could probably blabber about this for a little bit, and get my opinions out. Whereas now I probably have, I don't know, a couple hundred probably of these little ideas that, I feel like are worth being fleshed out. But the thing is, if you not abandon an idea, but if you don't circle back to an idea, I'd say somewhat around some amount of time before when you first had the idea, you do kind of lose whatever the fuck you thought, whatever magic there was there. You do kind of forget what was so. Maybe I just have like some stupid DMT drip or something in my brain where I'm like, oh, what a genius thing! This is brilliant. I could talk about this forever. And then I look at it later. I'm like, what does this even mean? This makes no sense. Um. Anyway, I'm back today and I haven't played Minecraft in a while either, so I'm a little rusty in that sense too. I have no clue what I'm gonna do in this world. Actually, I might go hunt some wither skeleton skulls. But yeah. So I awareness is a big is a something I've heard a lot, and it never necessarily struck me the wrong way, but I always felt like it was kind of stupid. Like awareness of like for example, like awareness of the climate issue. They're like, well, awareness is very important. Like, it's important that we have to raise awareness for this. I want to raise awareness for even, let's even take climate change as one thing. Let's say awareness of like childhood epilepsy or something like that, like an epilepsy awareness campaign. My question is, what am I supposed to do about epilepsy? Like given that I'm not a child with epilepsy. I don't have a child with epilepsy. I don't know anything about. I mean, I guess I know now because of this awareness campaign, but did me being aware of children with epilepsy, I mean, I could have told you that I knew that they existed. It wasn't like that was an abstraction I was unfamiliar with. Like, you'd have told me that, children get epilepsy. I go, what? Does it make any sense? Or have epilepsy. I just don't know what I'm supposed to do with that awareness now, and it's like as more and more things come around where it's like, oh, we have this awareness campaign, we have to be aware of this and aware of that. But yeah, okay, I'm aware, but what am I supposed to do about it though? Like, what can I do about it? And I think in some cases, awareness that leads to action or awareness that can change incentives is important. And obviously, you don't take action if you're unaware of something. So awareness is a prerequisite. But I think even just stressing awareness makes it sound like that's the last thing you have to do. It's like, all right, well, we've raised awareness for childhood epilepsy. Good job, everybody. We can all go home. It's like, okay, but we didn't really do anything. It's like if we're going to raise awareness to then like maybe push this drug over the limit or something that's going to fix it, or increase research spending or raise some money, and that's like one thing. That's fine. Part of that's kind of weaponizing people's empathy to give away their money to some degree, which I think some people should. If you have a bunch of money and you get guilt tripped by an epilepsy thing, great. Like, you shouldn't have that money anyway. But either way, I just don't know, what am I supposed to do about children with epilepsy. Awareness only goes so far. So I guess to extend this to something more, I guess even more of a hot topic issue is like the awareness of the surveillance state or awareness of digital privacy things. And I suppose this is an issue where I could maybe impart some more nuance on the whole awareness thing. It's not that I'm anti-awareness campaign. I think that's fine. I just think a lot of awareness campaigns kind of end they stop at the awareness. And once they've made people aware, through whatever stupid means, through Instagram ads or something, then it's like, okay, good, we did our job. It's like, but if you don't actually do anything, or you only like pander to people that are helpless, then it is kind of useless. So like with the surveillance state example, it's like, yeah, okay, people should be aware that they're in a surveillance state. But at this point, if you're under 30, and you've watched any dystopian movie, you kind of get it. It's not like it's a mystery to you what some of these companies are doing and how much of a threat this is. The problem in that case, I think, is people doing anything. Like, it's like awareness campaign of surveillance capitalism or the surveillance state or whatever. I won't even throw capitalism in there because that's kind of a different thing. I'm not really strictly opposed to that on a moral basis per se. And I don't like that they throw those words together, like surveillance capitalism. Like, you couldn't have a surveillance state without capitalism, as if somehow a communist state is incapable of being a surveillance. It's like, you're an idiot. Actually, a communist state's actually probably easier to be a surveillance state. So don't make capitalism the boogeyman for what's ultimately a surveillance issue. Like, the type of governance doesn't matter. Like, surveillance is surveillance. It doesn't matter. Capitalism or communism. It's not like, you should just associate surveillance states with capitalism, because historically capitalist economies are more difficult to impart those things on. It's just, we live in a different age now. But anyway, but like people, like getting people to do things about said surveillance state. It's like, I think, in terms of actionable things that you could actually do. Get this fucking guy out of my face. Like you could, run an Android phone. You could get rid of your Apple crap. You could, refuse all, the photo IDs everywhere. You could, there's lots of different more, very actionable things that you could do, to, kind of stave off the quote unquote surveillance state or surveillance capitalism or whatever. But again, the awareness kind of usually tends to end on like, here's what flock safety's doing. And here's why, you should be mad about it. And it's like, all right, you got me all pissed off. I'm all pissed off now. And then it's like, well, what are you going to do? And it's like, well, I think I'm going to go to McDonald's and use the app to get 10% off my order. It's like, okay, well, we've like, that was pointless then. It's like, we didn't really accomplish anything with all this awareness. I think, awareness is fine as a first step, but it really can't end. It can't end at awareness. It needs to develop into either action or changing the incentives in some way. Because like, and also it's like, who is aware of what? It's like, I think the people that need to be aware of things, or the people even that are, like, suppose you're someone that's running a giant tech company. I'm pretty sure that you're aware of, the fears that people have with the surveillance state and, whatever your company's role is. You probably, if I had to guess, just don't care that, people think that you're adding to the surveillance state. You probably just don't care. What you actually have to change in that sense is the incentives that these companies have, to, release said technologies or the reach of said technologies. So that, change on that level is, through legislative pressure or financial pressures that you can put on these companies to actually change your behaviors. And in that case, it's incentive. Awareness is not even a part of the equation. But it's like, what am I supposed to do to like get flock out of our cities? It's like, well, awareness is one thing, great, but if I can't do anything, then I'm not really helping anything. And it's like, if flock knows that they're evil and is just going to keep being evil, and and they don't care how mad people get. Like, that doesn't really matter. It's like, we have to put pressure on them in other ways. So I think, I don't know, it's not that I'm anti-awareness. I just think awareness, like, people can only be aware of so many things at once. It's like, I can't, my attention cannot be split between awareness of, globalism, fucking communism, capitalism, surveillance state, there's only so, global warming. There's only so, the Jews even. There's so many other things I have to keep. That was a joke. There's so many things I have to keep my mind on, and I can't. I only have two eyes. I can't just be aware of 40 different things at once. I kind of have to pick and choose my battles. And awareness is fine. It's like, okay, it's good that I know that global warming is a phenomenon that's occurring, but unless I have some leverage or ability or some dog in the fight, some way that I can impart change, it doesn't feel that helpful to me for us to be wasting our time, preaching about the importance of awareness. Because as great as it is, a Midwestern mom from Kansas, recycling a bag is not going to stop climate change or whatever. So that their awareness is kind of it's almost even can be used as a source for control, like to make a more difficult example. It's like, okay, well, you're aware of climate change and you're aware of surveillance capitalism. It's like, okay, well, then do you accept like a global warming recycling app, where it's like an app that tracks how well you're recycling? It's like, well, on one hand, it's like good that we're incentivizing recycling for people, but it's like, two, it's like, all right, is Kathy from Kansas, is that really the person who's causing global warming by not recycling a plastic bag? It's like, okay, well, no, not really. And then like, see, it's like, what else are we, what's the opportunity cost of, as like all this awareness campaign, so, so to speak, that's so important. What are we actually, what else could they be paying attention to that they're not, because, we're shoving this global warming app down their throat. It's just it's more complicated than just awareness. No matter what is good, it's just less binary thinking, I suppose, is one way to put it. Binary thinking in general is a silly concept, only because it's like, hey, people that are binary thinkers won't ever admit that they're binary thinkers. Like nuance, nuance is lost on those that need it the most. That's kind of I guess that's the crux of my argument. And almost nothing is binary. I think it's okay to think in binary terms when it is helpful, and when that shortcut doesn't impede impede your reasoning ability. When in most cases, I don't think it does. But anyway, I'm off track. I already lost my train of thought. Anyway, let's move on to something else here. Awareness incentives. I have this concept of like this trap of forward thinking. Like, I think thinking ahead to the future is a very normal. It's a very, very normal, and I will say healthy in quotes. Obviously with a caveat that I'm about to rip it apart. But it is a very normal and healthy thing to do, to be thinking of the future and of what you're going to do. What happens if this happens. It's even from an evolutionary perspective, it's very natural for us to be predicting behaviors and predicting potential futures and then preparing for those said things. The problem is I'll use the word globalist here, but in a interconnected, international, global society where there is, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot of chaos, and more than anything, just change is rampant. Change is something that is not only constant, but is a central force in our day-to-day lives. I think forward thinking can cause a lot of people, especially in my age bracket, to get into, I'll say, just get into like a rut of thinking where, like, in order for, it's like, let's say you're forward thinking to like, oh, I want to buy a house. It's like, okay, well, then I need to think, about the future economic realities and potentials of my future. And unfortunately for most people, that is a very depressing, unrealistic kind of dead zone for most people in in their early to mid 20s. So it's not like, I think forward thinking in that regard is, is, while it's seen as generally a good thing, can be a difficult thing, because it's like, if you start thinking about, all right, I want to afford a house and some kids one day. It's like, okay, well, then I'm going to work backwards. How much money do I need, for this and the mortgage payment? It's like, okay, well, job stability is like zero. Jobs themselves don't really pay anything unless you're, working on behalf of Palantir or, whatever. So it's like, all right, well, I don't really, the future of my financial future is uncertain. So then it's just kind of like, just causes a lot of anxiety. And I think that's where I think forward thinking can be a bit of a trap, is that, in our day and age where it's not as like simple as like, oh, I'm going to be forward thinking. Like, I'm going to go up to this tree and see if there's edible plants on it. Like, wait, hold on. Let me check if there's predators. Like, that was our biological, evolutionarily, like, that was what was implemented in our brains of like how to deal with how to be forward thinking. It's like, okay, like I need to check and make sure there's no predators in the nearby area. But now it's like, okay, I have to like think about the interest rates in 2032 when it's like, okay, well, are we even going to have an economy in 2032? It's just silly. I think most people are like, well, nothing ever really changes. Nothing ever really changes until it does. So like as much as I want to say that's, oh, well, it's like nothing's really going to happen. It's all going to be the same. Nothing ever happens. Uh, that's true until it isn't. It's like, and that's kind of a dumb way to get out of it. But I don't think that like, well, just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't means it won't happen. It's like, well, I don't really buy that logic either. I just think in general, whatever future you believe in, it is more difficult to be forward thinking in general because of the amount of uncertainty. And I think that uncertainty culminates into a type of ennui or existential anxiety that plagues and really paralyzes a lot of people. So I don't know. It's not that I'm against forward thinking. I just think uh, it's difficult to be adequately forward thinking as compared to maybe people in previous generations where they can think 30 or 40 years ahead. Whereas, I'd say in our generation, maybe the extent of your forward thinking could only be a few years, right? Maybe five years might be an okay timeline where you can kind of think about, okay, in 5 years, where am I going to be at? You can't really think about the 30-year mortgage, in this economy. Uh, yeah, I don't know. And maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe it's like I should have been saving for retirement already, and maybe Social Security isn't a scam, and we're gonna get all that money, and everyone's gonna, if you pay in, you'll get it out. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know. I'm just saying. I think there's lots of reasons to be skeptical. There's reasons to be optimistic too, but there's lots of reasons to be skeptical that the way things are, may not be the way that things are always going to be. And having contingency plans is good, but ultimately, like you're preparing for a future that you don't even know the first thing about. It's like, I'm not saying will jobs exist. I'm sure occupations will exist in some sense, but like, what do the financial realities look like in 2050? It could look very similar to how they look today, right? Or they could be vastly different. Like you don't really know. And I think especially as, tools like, the surveillance state or Palantir are being developed and deployed, those are what makes people very, those are what creates a lot of question marks in people's forward thinking, in their futures. It's like, 'cause I think that technology like cannot exist. If that technology is still around in 15 years, like the reality of what I'll be living in, not only will be hell on earth, but it will be something no matter what I do, I cannot really prepare for that. It's like I think no matter how I like think about the future, Palantir as a company that is in bed with the government and putting cameras everywhere or whatever the fuck can't really exist without like me just being completely fucked. Like there's not like a future in which like I'm good and Palantir's like good. It's like no, I think either they're gonna have to die one way or the other, and like you'll have to find a way. Someone's gonna have to choke them out or whatever. Like regulatorily speaking, choke them out, not physically choke out everyone at the company. Uh, or that like, or I'm screwed and there's really nothing I can do. And that's the other thing is like, okay, if I accept let's say a grim reality that's like, all right, well, I'm gonna be fucked no matter what, then like how much is forward thinking really gonna help me then? It's like I probably should have just enjoyed what I had while I had it, and stopped spending so much time thinking about the future. Which again, with all of this is like this just comes back to like a no duh truism where it's like, okay, balance is probably the best like strategy. It's like, all right, a little bit of forward thinking, kind of prepare for what you can. If you can't really prepare for it, then what's the use in worrying about it? It's like if I'm going to live in some hellscape surveillance state, and there's nothing I can do to fix it or change it. Like, what am I supposed to do now to prepare myself for that? It's like, well, like I think the bad thing to do would be to panic and do nothing and run around with my head cut off, or just got to gather skills that might be useful regardless of whether I don't know, growing food, foraging mushrooms or something. I mean, literally, I don't know. It's like I think trying to find evergreen skills that would be helpful regardless, even if my future is something that is pure hell. It's like okay, well, there's only so much of that I want to be thinking about, and then like even if I am right in whatever stupid predictions I make, like how much control do I really have over that? So I don't know. It's just I think a lot of people in our age group are kind of getting head blasted by boomers saying, well, you just got to think about the future. When I was your age, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, great. Like, I'm very happy that things have worked out for you the way that they did and that you were able to accumulate the wealth and have the wonderful life that you did. However, the trajectory that things are going are going to be a bit different. So it's like either A, I need to, prepare for that in whatever psychological, physical, economic, financial way that I can. Or B, if I really am screwed no matter what, it's like then there's no use worrying about it. So it's like I might as well just kind of enjoy the time and the few little liberties and goodies that I get with the way we have set it up now before it all goes to hell. So it's like either way, I don't think it's that helpful to be that anxious about it and to freak out about it. So I don't know. Yeah, I think in general, take anything from this. Balance is key. Duh. But then I think in terms of being realistic, like shrinking, when things get chaotic and unpredictable, I think shrinking time frames is a helpful solution. So like instead of thinking in terms of 20, 50, 30-year plans, moving to maybe, 2, 5, maybe 10-year plans if you're really stable, but if things are rough, it's like fine, then just think. Let's go 2 years. Let's just think 2 years in advance, nothing more. Like that's manageable. In 2 years, the world's gonna be different, sure, but it's not gonna be that much different. Like you're still gonna have, like we're still gonna have, like you're not gonna, you still have the same pair of shoes you're wearing. It's like you know that okay, if nothing else, I'll still have this pair of shoes. See, there's some more constants if you think in shorter time horizons, and I think as as the anxiety is dialed up to 11 with all the stuff that's being forced down your throat, um, you know, what can you do, actionably and reasonably within 2 years, knowing that things aren't going to change that much. But you can still make changes, that are positive or whatever. So I don't know. That's the real red pill in all this. Let's see. Yeah, this is another thing that really bothered me. This is kind of a niche autistic tech problem, but SSL certificates. So when you have a website like a domain, you know, suckmyballs.com or something like that. SSL certificates are, I'm simplifying here, but more or less are just like validates the authenticity of the owner of the domain and that it's an active site and that, it's more or less just allowing it so that the big scary pop-up doesn't come up and say like, this is, it's not a private connection. Like there could be whatever. And that just means your SSL certificate's expired. But my beef with that is that the SSL expiry times are getting shorter and shorter. Like I want to say they used to be like 180 days and then it was like 90 days. Now it's like 60. And I think in a few, in a year or 6 months or something like that, it's going to go down to like 35 days or something like that. It's just getting shorter and shorter and shorter so that someone like me who I manually refresh my certificates. I use CertBot. And I could, very trivially set up a script to do it. I actually tried a couple times and it doesn't work for some reason. But I think the real op here is that the independent publishers that don't rely on giant, Google Cloud compute platforms to manage all their domains and their websites and use these giant bloated React apps as websites. People like me that handcraft their websites and manage it themselves and don't pay any subscriptions to any providers of any kind. This just kind of puts more work on them. And I'm sure there is a technical reason of like encryption, need to be updated or something like that. But I don't necessarily buy those. Those to me sound like big tech excuses of like, oh, this is so powerful. You're going to have to this is going to change everything. It's like, I don't know that is really an excuse that I buy. Just the op here is that big tech is further squeezing independent publishers by more or less trying to force them into automated systems or to sign up for like one of these services is like Redshift. I think Redshift is just a notifications. They're not necessarily a problem, but What'll eventually happen is that, like, in order for you to even own a domain in the first place, you're going to have to sign up for like an automated SSL, refreshing thing, or they're going to find a way to nuke certbot or something like that. I don't know. This just the op is that they're squeezing more and more of these independent publishers to try to plug them in some way to the matrix, for lack of a better word. The matrix just being all of big tech's crappy products and their forced subscriptions on you for their crap. I don't know, that bothered me, and I wanted to mention it for the record. So whenever it gets inevitably much worse, I can look back on this video and go, wow, it was really nice. I can't believe SSL certificates lasted a full 30 days. And they last like an hour or something like that, and you have to sign up for Google's automated, because we're going to protect the security of your website. I'm sure they really care about that. Anyway, I'll move on to something else here. Let me get to a safe space so I can actually read these haikus. So this is my safe space. Let's see. Yeah, this was a thought I had a while ago. Technology is, and I guess I'll use digital technology. So technology, technically the wheel is a technology, technically, but people don't really consider that. When I say technology, people usually think of iPhones and iPads and stuff like that. So to be more specific, I'll say digital technology. So those are iPads or whatever. They're paralyzing, and I think that word I'm choosing very can't think of the word. Ironically, I can't think of the word. Reason I chose that. I'm using that word very deliberately. That's the word I'm looking for. I use the word paralyzing deliberately because I think digital technologies are paralyzing both physically and intellectually. In the sense that if hype aside, it's like the technologies you have offer very advanced capabilities. So it's like, answering questions. I can't tell you how tall the Eiffel Tower is off the top of my head. I can't, but I have a very convenient and, a very accessible device that can very quickly. And while that might sound like A, who cares, and like B, isn't that a good thing? It's like, oh, you can just figure out stuff. You can learn things right then and there. But I think, that pattern of behavior where it's like you think of something, you reach for the device, and then you don't really have to engage the same amount of mental facilities you did before, I think causes a type of paralyzation. And I felt this too. It's easier when I don't use technology as much. I really feel like I actually have like an intellectual muscle that I can kind of reach into and like not flex, but like use, where it's like, I need to think. Let me just think about this. Whereas so often it's like things are either so easily answered, or they're just opinions that I don't think about. I just kind of vomit them out. I don't often have to like really like not like flex my brain, but you know what I mean, like the proverbial flexing of the brain. Like I actually need to think about this because I don't quite know. But I think technology is intellectually paralyzing in that something that you don't know that you also can't look up. It does kind of leave you stunned for a little bit. It's like, how tall is the Empire State Building? And like, you don't have a phone with you, so you can't look it up, or if someone is challenging you to know. And then you're just kind of like, okay, wait, how do I think about this again? It's like, there's probably a good way to like, okay, if I think about how many, stories tall the Empire State Building is, I can kind of convert that to feet or something. And, maybe if I, can use a reference of something, I know there's a way to reason about those using the intellectual muscle that I think when you get used to using technology, you really don't practice that often. And you kind of don't lose that ability, but you forget, or it is glossed over by your dependence on technology. So I think it's intellectually paralyzing in that way. And I've also included that it's physically paralyzing because quite literally, like, your body can't really move when you're using a phone or a computer. It's not like we exist in a world where we've integrated technology into our motions. It's like, yeah, there's like, ankle monitors that people wear to work out and stuff like that. That's fine, I guess. To me, that's like a lesser evil of technology. But most digital technologies are physically paralyzing in the sense that you're fucking tapping buttons on a screen like a loser and you can't really do anything. One thing that bothered me just today that I'll just throw in here, credit card readers that are touchscreen where you have to enter your PIN, I think are a much more of a security problem than the, let's say, the analog touchscreen. Well, they're not even analog; they just have actual physical buttons. Because as someone that uses a debit card, because I think credit is wrong for many reasons, but I use a debit card and I have to put my PIN in to places. And usually you want to do so discreetly because you don't want someone behind you or anyone else to kind of see your PIN. And I realize that this is a stupid thing. It's like, well, if someone wants to know my PIN, they'll probably eventually get it if they, are doing intel on me and following me around. It's not really about that. But for me, it's more about the principle of the thing. It's like, can I input my PIN discreetly and quietly such that, I feel protected? And my issue is that with these touchscreen readers, it's like you can't really, because the touch is so like gentle and light, you can't really quickly or smoothly type in your pin without like looking like an idiot. Like I have to like put everything down, use my second hand to like cover my hand and then put the pin in. And then someone's like, why, like, people are looking at me weird. It's like, why are you doing that? Why are you putting your pin with two hands? When, I just, on a normal reader, I could just really quickly with my thumb just mash the four buttons that I need to know my pin. Even if you were looking at a 240p video camera, it'd be hard for you to tell what numbers I put in because A, I did it really quickly. B, it was very fast, and I was kind of using my hand to cover up the other numbers. Whereas on a touchscreen, I can't really cover up the rest of my hand and use my thumb or my pointer finger to press the buttons adequately. So it's just a security problem. I think it's a lapse in design, and it's another example of how lots of technologies are going backwards in terms of their usability. Not to mention other things that are probably getting much worse, but that bothered me today because I was like, why are they? Now these readers have me putting my pin on a touchscreen, which just makes it fucking way worse. Because also you can't. They're not as odd as it sounds. You would think like touchscreen means like infinitely more like responsive. Like, oh, it must like be able to respond faster. It's actually not. Like the buttons, I genuinely think, like input lag aside, I actually think that I cannot press the buttons fast enough on a touchscreen. I could press them faster with the physical buttons. Like obviously I can, but then I even think the software itself, for whatever reason, like doesn't register the taps for like 2/4 of a second or something like that, long enough to where if I had made 4 consecutive taps very quickly, like as if I was typing, it would only register like 2 hits instead of all 4. Whereas with the buttons, I could hit all 4 very quickly. And because I'm actually pressing a button, A, I would know that I touched it, and I would get the feedback of the button going in. But then B, like I wouldn't, there is no pause with that. I don't know, I just think it's stupid in general. It's just bad design. Anyway. This was another thought I had. I don't know where I was going with this, but maybe I'll find the intellectual thread at some point. I wrote, I feel like there will be an economic collapse, but it will be blamed on things that didn't actually cause it. It will be a psyop. And depending on how conspiratorial you are, this is either like a no duh or like a no way kind of thing, where it's either like, well, of course there's gonna be an economic collapse, and of course they're gonna blame it on something stupid that won't actually be the problem, or they're gonna somehow blame it on consumers for spending too much on ice cream or something like that, and not being able to afford their rent. Whereas the actual reasons of it are going to be it'll just be the same as like the Roman Empire. It's like, why did the Roman Empire fall? It's like, well, there's, depending on who you talk to, there's anywhere from 3 to 300 different answers, and they're all they all have different levels of validity. And I don't think, and I think people, maybe this is a different have a different angle I'm looking at this as, but I think people are very preoccupied with this concept of like blaming, like whose fault is it that the rocket blew up. It's like, yeah, we can be very, we have to put safety rails in place so we know like who's responsible for what. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Like responsibility is a good thing. We should hold people accountable for whatever it is that they do. But we should also avoid bad things from happening anyway. So it's like the fact that you could obfuscate yourself from responsibility of an economic collapse. Like suppose you were Klarna. You're Klarna, which if you know what Klarna is, it's like an afterpay thing where you agree to pay later. It's stupid. People are financing burritos. It's the end of the world. But Klarna itself would be like, well, we're just a payment provider. Like we're obviously not, we're like, even if anything, we're just a symptom of a bad economy. We're not like the cause of it or anything. And it's like, fine, I get that you don't feel responsible, and maybe you really aren't. It's like at the end of the day, it's like, is Klarna the reason that the economy is going to collapse? It's like, no, obviously it's not like their fault. And if things are do well or not, it's still not their fault, like regardless. But at the end of it, it's like you still know that you're making things worse. Like the fact that you guys exist, you're not helping. So it's like who cares about who gets blamed for this? It's like sure it's not your fault, but you still suck. It's like I know that you can't. You're not really at fault, and no one's going to blame you for this. And like I guess get your bag or whatever, but you're still gay for doing what you guys did. It's like you guys didn't help. You're kind of making everything worse. It's like, yes, it's not your fault, but you're just not fucking helping. And I think that's kind of I don't know, the ethos is like, as long as it's not my fault, then it's like, well, I can do whatever I want. Well, it wasn't my fault that happened. It's like, well, you didn't, but you're making it worse. It's like you're kind of pouring gas on the fire when you could have just, at the very least, just done nothing. Just fuck off and don't make it even worse. So I don't know. I think there's a tendency to see that's like, well, as long as I'm not going to be held responsible for this, it doesn't matter what I do because it's not my fault. It was already like that. It's like it's the same reason that people that like take advantage of like tax loops or tax breaks in the system or something like that, where it's like you can register as a fake as a I don't know a fake LLC or something like that, or a C corp in Delaware, and it's like, well, this is just how the system's set up. It's not, don't hate the player, hate the game. I'm like, well, you know what game you're playing, and you know that you're playing it in a shitty way, and like whether or not it's like if the game fault, and if the game is life, and it's one thing if it's like fucking baseball, and like don't hate the player, hate the game. It's like, all right, I kind of get that. It's like it's a game. At the end of it, we're all gonna go home. It is what it is. But like this is a game of people's economic realities, and their entire lives are hit up in this game of yours. And it's like, I'm not hating the player, I hate the game. You are ruining people's lives. This is not a game. Okay. You can call it a game. The tax code is a game. And like, well, you shouldn't have wrote it up like that. It's like, well, you're making it worse. It's like, you're the reason we have to have 40,000 lawyers at every time anyone speaks about anything, because you guys just screw everything up. It's like you're losing the principle of the thing. It's like, I realize that to you it's just a game and like you're not doing anything illegal. It's like written in the tax code. It's like, yeah, but you're still a fucking loser for doing what you did and like doing it this. I know it's sure whatever you're doing is not technically illegal, but if it were a dictatorship, I would behead you in the town square. You know, I'm not even that anti beheadings actually. I think there was a role for not like public executions as a concept. I think have I'm sure they have an interesting history. It's not one that I, am particularly knowledgeable about, but I do think it is interesting in terms of its, uh, you know, social incentives. Because I think, especially in the Western world, we've kind of abdicated all responsibility from any kind of social shame. Right? It's like we don't we don't shame fat people. We don't shame anybody for anything all the time. And maybe the more tolerant people might go, oh, that's a great thing. It's like we shouldn't be shaming people. People should be allowed to do what they want. And again, to an extent, I agree. But people doing what they want also includes people leveraging a outdated constitution and tax system to ruin people's lives. And like to me, that's like not like doing what you want. That's fucking people over. So to me, it's like I think that needs to be shamed. And I'm not saying we have to do that via public execution. That's obviously hyperbolic. Uh, but I think they still things like that, or incarcerations, public trials, or whatever, still like create incentives for people to change their behaviors, because that is the difference. It's not, like I said before, it's not awareness necessarily that's that helpful. It's like the incentives around certain things that cause changes in behaviors. If we want change in certain things, we have to create different incentives. Like awareness is one thing, but the incentives have to be in line with our new objectives, whatever they are. And if we don't shame people that, I won't say leverage, I will say uh, exploit flaws in our system. Again, I'm not using the word leverage, I'm using exploit. We should not applaud that. We should not applaud people, and I'm using exploiting outdated constitutional rights. Well, that's not in the law. It's not legal. That's not. We're not applauding your ingenuity for doing someone that people. There was probably 10 more people that had whatever crappy idea that you had before you, but at some point they had the dignity and the self-respect to go, you know what, this is going to be a terrible idea, because it's like, this is going to happen. We're going to ruin people. It's like we're going to take everyone's privacy, and it's like, then like this is just going to be a mess. Like, let's just not do this. Like, I know it's technically legal and we could probably make a decent amount of money, but it's just like not worth it, because like we'd be creating a lot of. It's not the spirit of the law. It's like, yeah, they obviously didn't write in an iPad clause in 1776, but it's like, all right, the spirit of it's like, all right, we're kind of going against the spirit of the law. Whereas, the people that, do make the billion-dollar company off some, crappy, stupid scheme are like, well, I'm a genius. There's nothing legal about this. We should not applaud that. We should bring back the shame. It should be the spirit of it. Uh, and I don't know, maybe this kind of ties in with, uh, binary thinking to some degree or something like that. But I don't know. Shame needs to make a comeback. I've said that before, but anyway, let me, uh, let me go back to my list here. Try to knock off a few more of these. Um, Yeah, this is another thing it's very common. This might be very common amongst other people too, but it's and maybe someone's already talked about this before, but I just call it productive procrastination. So it's like where you have things you want to do, or, slash need to do. Usually you don't need to do anything like besides eat and sleep and stuff like that, but things that you want to do, whether it's, finishing your work or whatever. You could probably get away with not doing it, but you probably should, whatever. Um, but I am a very much a productive procrastinator, in the sense that instead of me doing said thing, I will do something else that is still, I'll say very objectively like productive, where it's not like, oh, you're wasting your time. Why are you're not gooning, but you're very much not doing what you said you were going to do. It's like you're just finding something else that's tangentially, quote unquote, productive to do, but you're also just completely procrastinating, which is a very common thing for me. And I guess to caveat this, I would prefer productive procrastination over unproductive procrastination. But at the end of the day, it's still procrastinating, and I would still rather be doing the thing that I said that I want, like that I intended to do at the very beginning, instead of procrastinating. But anyway, I just thought that was not a funny quip, but just perhaps a relatable concept. Let's see what else. Yeah, I wrote down in here that I would do well as a as a martyr, getting murdered by Nabisco for shitting on Pop Tarts. That's actually pretty funny. I don't know that I have any other comments on that besides that is funny, and I'm glad I uh, wrote that down. But I think I would. I would be happy dying at the cause of no more Pop Tarts, because to me, just Pop Tarts just are like such a dystopian food. Because it's not, even using the word food here, I'm kind of using it quite liberally, but it's just such a dystopian food. It's like not. It's obviously not real. It's supposed to be a pastry, I suppose. So it's not. The bread is not even close to real. I mean, it's like sawdust that they mixed with Elmer's glue. It's not. It's not a fucking, it's not a pastry whatsoever. And then the frosting is like, like a toenail that they've somehow infused with sugar, and it's like I'm eating. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever eaten in my life. I say that as a kid that used to eat Pop Tarts all the time, but I suppose maybe it's just the maturation of the palate. That's one thing. I do hear it's like, well, once you grow up and you mature, your palate will change too, which there is truth to that. But to me, that's not an excuse for feeding children shit. It's like just because a child will enjoy eating whatever chemical abomination that Nabisco can dream up in their fab lab, that doesn't excuse a parent like feeding their kid that. Like that still should absolutely be like considered abuse in some regard. Like I know that kids don't have very refined palates and they tend to go towards the most sugary or salty thing they could possibly, get their hands on. But I don't know. It doesn't excuse that bad behavior. Hang on a second. Let me get another topic here before I die to this stupid wither. Um, mm, yeah, this was a quip I had. I suppose you got to give a fuck to get a fuck. And I don't mean get a fuck meaning getting laid. I just meant um, like giving a shit. Like in order to get anywhere or getting I guess fucks are kind of a hard thing to get. I'll come back to this one. I think there's a good concept here. I just don't have the headspace for it. But the quote being that you got to give a fuck to get a fuck. I'll come back to that. Um, this was another, I guess, one-liner I had. Uh, a job is just quote someone above me with a vested interest is making me do this to make them think I am doing something productive. End quote. So it's more or less what that boils down to is a job in the modern sense of the word. It's not laying railroad spikes. It's just I need to convince this person above me that I'm doing enough work to justify, not necessarily the money I'm being paid, but to justify their supervision of my said work. Um, Given that the person above me has a vested interest. I guess that's all I have to say about that too. But I don't know. I think I was feeling much more philosophical when I wrote most of these, and right now I'm just kind of uh, I'm kind of in just a very down to earth mood. Um, I guess to end on a food note, if I guess I think that the heavyweight champions that'll come down to is it's totally a 180, but healthcare versus big food. Who wins? And the real question is the real answer is they both win. We all lose. But it would be funny to think like, can modern medicine outrun a modern diet? And I guess there's epigenetic factors. There's obviously tons of lifestyle factors that are involved. But in general, I do kind of think that big food is winning and beating big healthcare. Healthcare is good. I'm not saying it's bad at all, but I think you definitely see a lot of very, very, very sick people, and you still see people going into McDonald's. So it's not like, and I don't know. You don't really see healthy people eating McDonald's. People you do see eating McDonald's are usually end up being very, very sick. But it is funny to think about. They're kind of both fighting each other to see who who can like poison and cure. Because I say we all lose because ultimately like they both win because they both get all of our money. But then like because we buy the food from McDonald's and then when we get sick we spend the money on overpriced healthcare. Insurance also wins. Really, everybody loses except for them. It's like they always win. But I do hold out hope and faith that the that story, which in my lifetime seems to be as old as time. It's like, of course, big pharma wins. Why? Like we would never. Of course, we don't. We don't win. But I do think that can change and will change in our lifetime. I do feel like they at some point people, and people will have enough, and it won't. I certainly don't think it would be. What the hell? I don't think it'll be all the people. I think a lot of people will go down with the ship, and they will just kind of accept, the end. But I think there will be enough of a subset of people. I'll say like me, but you know, uh, I guess pioneering individuals that will not allow for the tyranny to continue forever. And I think that will happen hopefully in our lifetime. And again, it won't be a majority of the population. It'll just be a very passionate, vested subset. Okay, let me fucking kill this guy. This guy's driving me nuts. Anyway, it's about all the time. I'm going to finish killing this wither, and then I'll wrap up. It's a bit all over the place. I think I have a high degree of mental entropy today. It's just another concept I want to get into eventually. The concept of mental entropy is funny to me. It's like how much just inner chaos is happening. Yeah, pretty high degree of mental entropy for me today, but I'm gonna hopefully work out this muscle a bit more in the next couple days, weeks going forward. Get a little bit better at doing these. Get back to my old self. Get back on the horse here. And anyway, thanks for watching. Peace out, and I will see you in the next one.